Okay, so we're live. So hi everyone, welcome to the sprint planning for Emu Sprint 3. And before we start, I just want to say let's keep a couple of things in mind here. I put together some sprint planning guidelines as well as sprint review guidelines for the next reviews. The idea here is that the Scrum board should contain only user stories or bugs. We should refrain from putting tasks or things like that in there. Also, all stories should be sized with story points estimates, which are drawn from the Fibonacci series. And given the fact that we're running a 3-week sprint, no story should be larger than 8 points. So we should also strive to make sure that the user stories have clear titles and proper descriptions to be assigned to an epic so that we can keep track of them better. And generally, this should not be a user story or bug scrub session meeting. The backlog should already be groomed and populated. But of course, we can expect to do some polishing in here. Just generally should not be a scrub session. Also, just as a general reminder, we should try to think of the work during this meeting and to minimize the chance where we would have to add work mid-sprint. Now, it's going to happen, that's okay, but it should be generally treated as an exception, and generally that such work should be added to the sprint only with the consent from the product owner and other stakeholders. And this is in order to make sure that we maintain the overall priorities of the object and don't divert it with small, with basically pet projects. And also, finally, last but not least, we should make sure that we don't overload the sprint. We've done this in the past, and if you were to analyze the sprint velocity of the team as it stands right now, we've been achieving roughly 30 story points per week, which means that even if you were to overload it a little bit, we should really not, we should really not have any more than 90 points, but allowing for a little bit of an overload of the sprint, we should really have no more than 120 story points. So with these points in mind, I think we can switch to the Scrum board and start taking a look at what was already loaded in the sprint. And we're going to go through this epic by epic, but just as a small reminder here, in contrast to the last point that I just made, you can already see that we have 186 points of work in here. So unless our sprint velocity changes somehow, I predict that we will probably already leave something like 50 points on the table at the end of the sprint. So let's keep that in mind. And I think with that in mind, we can probably start going through the various epics. Now, rather than going in the order, I'm going to go from the platform outwards, just sort of like what we do with our sprint reviews. So we don't seem to have any platform specifics in there, so fine. I presume that that this would already have been loaded on by either myself or Brian or others who are in charge of the core / platform. So switching to core, these are the items that will need to be addressed as part of the core. Now, Madan, do you want to speak to some of these? Hello? Is Madan on today? Is he there?
Thomas, we're here, but we're resolving some display issues.
Yeah, I muted because it was causing some echoes for Bob and Brian.
I see. And were you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so my soapbox lecture was well received then, I take it? Maybe with some cringing?
No, it's good. We like that.
Okay, so Madan, do you have so for the most part, really, all I see in here is just the core integration with the copycat and a few bug fixes. Is that correct?
That is right. So I think if you refresh it, there's probably a couple of stories that will show up, but they're all related to dynamic clustering support.
Okay, great.
I mean, all the stories are the goal is to get us to support dynamic clustering. There are a couple of bug fixes which have been there for like sprint or two now, which haven't gotten to, but I think they are important enough that we should be attempting to get to that this sprint.
Okay. And Subin, I presume you're the one who put the 3029 on here. Is that correct?
I put it into a sprint, but I'm not sure where that should go into.
Okay.
I don't think it's in the core, but somehow it got default dropped into the core.
So first of all, I'm going to convert it to a story, and then go back to the Scrum board. So whether or not it's part of the core, I guess I'm not sure, but I guess in priority, you really view it as a critical thing.
Well, if you want it to be deployable in an Office network or even some of the deployment that Lucas does, I think there could be problem that if you don't age out the...
Yeah, but one question is that the right solution? Because I had a different approach, which was to basically age out the apps without the hosts. So
that's fine. I just said some mechanism that
okay,
needs to
sure.
be investigated.
Okay, so the question is regarding the priority. So while I would like to see clearly ONOS continue to run on the Office network, I don't think that relative to the court as an overall use case and the priority, it's a high priority. So in that case, I would like to sort of dispute the criticality of this and maybe leave it on the table as a major thing, but not a critical thing. Are you okay with that? So can we rewrite this?
I mean, this is blocking just, in some use case, not necessarily the main use case that we have.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, so can I rewrite this as a need ARP stable aging mechanism? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's better.
And I'm going to drop the priority unless there is an objection.
Sure. That's fine. Yeah, I do it. That's crazy.
Okay. All right. And I'll put it down here. Okay.
That's what you know.
All right. And in terms of sizing, Jono, do you think you have a rough size of what this would entail?
Yeah, I would say 5.
All right. Thank you.
So are we going to accept all of those? That's a lot, right?
Well, so I don't know.
The stories related to dynamic clustering. So some of these are, I mean, it's not that we are starting them from scratch. So some of them have been like, we have made some progress.
Yep.
But these story points sort of account for, at least in some case, ONOS integration with latest copycat account for like the entire thing. So I mean, if you just look at what is remaining, it might be a little lower than that.
Okay. So you're comfortable having that as the set of things?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So I think with that we can probably move on to other use cases. I'm gonna go next. I'm gonna go on to southbound. I presume Ali, is this for the most part you or no?
Yeah. So I just added a couple things that I think need to be addressed. One of them is the OpenFlow provider, especially the flow subsystem. It's getting a little bit complicated and hard to debug. So I wanna rework that.
Hey, can you just take a look at Bob's comment for a minute? So he said, so when we're talking, I guess he's not seeing Thomas's
Yeah,
screen.
I think
right?
Thomas needs to present to everyone.
Oh, right.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yeah, that will fix it on Thomas's screen all the time.
Okay, so Bob, hopefully that'll fix it for you.
Okay.
All right.
So reworking part of the flow provider, especially maybe some other parts of the provider, it's a little bit wonky. Another thing is the OpenFlow controller, what I call the OpenFlow subsystem here. needs tests. It hasn't been tested. It's the part that we use the most that has no tests. Probably my fault. And also, what I haven't put here is there's going to be more work for netconf related efforts and support a workflow for understanding how we go from a device Yang model to a behavior, and just not necessarily supporting a whole bunch of device behaviors, but understanding the process by which we take a device Yang model and get a behavior loaded into ONOS, document that so that vendors can actually submit their Yang models and stop complaining to us. Right? Did I say that out loud? And that's okay. And I think that's kind of it's part of the highlights. That's about it. Do you want me to go into more detail or less detail, or just shut up?
We transform the bugs in story so we can prove the point.
So those are bugs that pre-existed from before. So we can convert them to stories, but then I mean, sure, I don't mind. It's just that it'll add more story points.
I know, just to have an idea, right? Because at the end of each sprint, we come out to say, oh, we added too many story points and we didn't, and we did just a percentage of that. So if we want to start to have a real idea of how many story points we are committing, I know it's kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I don't know. There's already a lot of story points in the southbound area, which I mean, I can already say that it's going to be hard to address all of them, because between my work on Cord and on this, I only have 2 hands.
So why don't you pull out the ones that are least important, right? And if you get to them, we'll pull them back in.
Fair enough. Can I do that later and think about it a little bit? Which ones are the more important ones? Because I don't want to do this live right now.
Okay.
Especially if there's some things that have been added by other people that I have to go ask these other people why they were added.
Okay, and 1196, does that have an estimate?
Yeah. So I was going to ask Yuka about this, because I don't know what it means.
Then why are you picking that up?
So it reminded me to do it.
Actually, I don't remember.
So it'll probably go away. That'll be precisely the reason why I pulled it in, because like, what does this mean? If I don't pull it in, then I'll forget about it.
I think if the last node who is connected to the switch goes away, in the device model-wise, the device will be online, but there's no one who can become the master, so no one can turn it offline, so you're going to have a phantom device which says to be on, but actually isn't.
Okay.
Can I make to me, this is more of an edge case, and I would deprioritize it, given the fact that it's an edge case. I mean, it's important to keep the backlog, but I don't think we need to tackle it now. Is that all right?
Sure.
Do you while speaking on this point, do you have a rough idea of what it would take in terms of points to address?
Let's say 3.
3? All right, and don't mind, I'm just going to move it out. Okay? So, is this okay? Ali, are you going to be the only one working on it, or is there some other?
I hope not. Because if I'm the only one working on this, there's no way it's going to happen.
Right.
So hopefully someone else will work on this with me. The other person is yet to be defined.
All right.
The room and point at someone.
And what are you going to do about the?
Exactly. Everyone's looking away. It's like.
What are you going to do about the re-architect one that's 8 points?
Well, it's quite a big effort, and it has to be done kind of carefully, because we kind of rely on that pretty heavily. So it's kind of a big effort.
Should we at least, is that something that's critical, or can we get by without it, do you think, for
We
now?
can probably get by without it, but the more we defer it, the uglier it gets.
Understood.
I mean, I'm okay to defer it. I'm happy to defer it, because that's 8 points that I don't have to worry about. But it might be to our own detriment in the long run. I don't know. Up to you. We can. I suggest we leave it in here for now, and we can discuss this over coffee or beer.
Could it turn into a different story, which is a smaller story that it drives a decision of what you want to do, as opposed to the whole everything?
Yeah, we could break it up into the different subsystems, into like the flow, the device, and like all the different subsystems. Sure, that's a possibility as well. To break it up and pull them in right one by one. Sure.
So
You'll lose the coherence of the story. Right? If it's a real story, then you want to keep it as a story. You could add subtext or something.
it's more just again because every time we talk about the points, right? But in theory, at my understanding, that story should be, if it's just him, it should be all the sprint, just that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? All the other story, if we want to keep that, all the other story in theory shouldn't even exist inside there.
I agree.
Well, then of course there can be a percentage of
people, right?
Sure. So pull it out until he's got a way to have someone work with him on it, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's more realistic.
I mean, okay,
If you find a way to do it, Ollie, we just pull it back in. It's no big deal.
No, I know, but we're being very careful not to overshoot the sprint here. I mean, it's okay to overshoot the sprint. It's not the end of the world.
No, I don't think so. I think we agree that we want to get better at this, right?
All right, fair enough. I rest my case.
Yeah, overshooting 20% is okay, but not by much.
All right, let's take it out, and we'll pull it back in at some point.
Yeah. All right. Is everybody comfortable with the southbound?
Southbound side of a northbound ONOS. Yeah.
So is it okay to change to northbound?
Sorry, say again?
Is it okay to move to northbound?
Yes.
Right, I presume this was largely populated by Brian and Show, correct?
Yep. So I think, sorry, I'm getting horrendous echo.
Same here.
I think 3023, that we decided might be related to the bug that Charles was looking into on the southbound. And so we wanted to actually descope that out of the sprint and try to solve Charles's bug first.
Okay.
And we can try to tackle the other one, 2791. Then we also wanted to implement the simplified intent domain subsystem. That is 8 points right now, but there's about 3 or 4 points that have been work from previous sprints, and so it's only about 4 to 5 points of work for this sprint. We can change the scoping if we want, or if we want to get credit from past sprints, leave it at 8. We also wanted to try to tackle a demo app, the forwarding, the enhanced forwarding app that would do reactive-based policy, do a little bit of documentation, and then also investigate a remote RPC mechanism for northbound interfaces.
That sounds good. Is Show there?
On the resource side, yeah, Show can talk about these.
Okay. So Show, if you can maybe speak about the resource service related issues and also provide the size.
ONOS 2362 is very trivial to remove the dependency of resource service from object tracker. Very trivial. I think that 1 or 2 for story points.
Oh, wait.
What? 2 or 3?
Which number do you want me to put down?
2. Next two tickets, 2396 and 3296 and 3297. Ticket coming from optical use case requirements. I think these tasks are 4 story points.
Okay, and what about the this one? Both 3 points too?
Yeah, I think he said both, Thomas.
Okay, I didn't hear that. Okay, perfect. Okay. All right, so that means, so right now between two people we have about 20, yeah, so about 13, roughly speaking, 13 points each. I guess that should be okay. All right. So if
yeah, Thomas, the other thing is it's not quite a full 13. It's
right, because as we discussed, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There's like probably 3 or 4 points in there that are just from previous collection.
Right. Okay. That sounds good. I think probably next we can move to UI. Simon, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So basically, finishing up the programmable dialogue, and oh, you're going to have to refresh because it's been updated since you last did that.
Let's see.
So finishing up the programmable dialogue and catching up with documentation on the wiki is kind of the main focus of this. I threw in a couple of bugs there to just keep chipping away at those.
Okay.
But nothing astounding.
Okay, that seems good and doable. All right, thank you. On the REST and CLI, we don't have anything.
Thomas?
Yes?
Can you go back to the northbound? You have 26 story points. Is that too much?
Oh, well.
Still too much.
Well, normal should be 8, right?
So a couple of things. I just noticed a new story here. I guess I didn't refresh the 3262. How many story points does that show?
That was 2 or something, right? 3262.
This is 2.
2, Thomas.
I'm not sure what happened, but okay. So 26. Yeah. So that's what I was talking about. That it seems to be 13 per person here, roughly speaking. But given the fact that there is some points already, work has been done. I think it's okay to overshoot. Not too bad.
So we're talking about 11.5 points per person for 3 weeks.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Instead of 8, he is 50% more of the plus the bytes that are not tracked.
I'm also fine removing documentation tasks and some of the other lower priority stuff.
I think the documentation tasks are the ones that should stay, as opposed to the implementation tasks. Like documentation is more important. I mean, fine.
I mean, the thing is, a documentation without a working subsystem, sure, that's fine. We can do it that way too if you guys want.
Your call.
I mean, I think the implementation here is more critical to moving some of our use cases forward than having the documentation. The documentation really needs to be done before the release. So, you know, I don't know. That's why the prioritization is the way it is.
So the fact is, regardless the story we want to do or not in this specific context, right? To make this thing make sense, for me, we should really say together how much more we want to overcommit, right, in terms of percentage. Do we want to commit like 20, 30% more? Fine, we agree on that. And those are the story points we should go for, right? Because if we then say, sure, 50% it's okay anyway, 80% is okay anyway, and then we don't do it, it doesn't really make sense to keep track of all these points. Just that.
So my point here is let's avoid overshooting in the wrong direction either. So we clearly need to tighten up our. We need to keep this in mind and tighten things up, but we don't necessarily need to go zealously overboard. So to me, this seems reasonable. I mean, this is still within the realm of just where the southbound was. So I wouldn't overthink it too much, as long as we're not obviously overloading things. And as long as the priority, at least with respect to the items taken from the top of the backlog, is correct, we're good.
If you want, you could take the bottom on the RPC mechanism and put it back in the backlog, and if they get around to doing something there, great. Pull it back in.
Sure, that's fine. Also, I just took the bug 3023 out of the sprint too.
Okay. I'm not sure why this is not listening to me. There we go. Okay, so we got this. Nothing that should be removed. All right. Okay, so with that, we were on REST and CLI. There was nothing there. The built-in applications, I don't think we have any work scheduled either. Virtualization, we're suspending until the work with intent domains has been settled down a little bit.
Why is the intent domain taking precedence over the virtualization?
Because the intent domain stuff can actually be used underneath the. Because I took the virtualization up until the point where basically where we have the virtual network provider, and the provider can actually lean on the intent domain stuff.
That's not what was discussed previously. This is new. This is different.
Well, so let's put it this way, Ali. Those the same mechanisms that will be used to achieve virtual slicing and be able to achieve implementation of both virtual links and virtual devices can lean heavily on the intent domain of the underlying physical network.
Okay.
So for that particular reason, just to be able to get focus, we need to move something forward. And my concern was here, if you leave both the intent domains and virtual network stuff on the plate, we're not going to make progress on either of them. That basically divides our efforts far too much. And so even if we leave it up to the discussion, or even if we decide, okay, that the virtual network stuff shouldn't depend on intent domain, even in presence of that argument, I still would like to be able to focus and get the one thing forward. And in my view, the intent domain stuff is far more important.
But I mean, the virtualization stuff is kind of like, it's pretty fundamental for core in particular, but for other use cases as well.
Not for core. For core, we decided we're going with the overlays.
But only because the virtualization subsystem wasn't ready yet. So, I mean, we can discuss this offline, but I mean, we can discuss this offline. We can leave it as this for now, and we can take it offline.
Okay. Well, okay. Let's. So what I really think we need to do, and I think this is where we're probably lacking a little bit, we need to be able to keep our backlog groomed better. And, so we're probably playing the role here, the backlog in order and prioritize. Okay. So if you're fine with that for this sprint, we can just leave it like this, and I guess offline we can synchronize and make sure the priorities are correct.
Okay.
The security work, I don't think we're tracking that at all at this point in time. And I think with that, we can probably move to the use cases and the other components. The IPv6 was finished, as we heard last sprint review. So I'm going to go down the use cases from the bottom. That's okay. So starting with the SFC,
Thomas, with me, Patrick, I can do this.
Sorry, Patrick. Thomas, excuse me. Is there anything committed for IPv6? Because I saw it empty, but is there something we... Because if it's empty, we can put it as done, right? And then open to Epic when we need it.
Sure. We can sleep through the epics offline if you wouldn't mind doing that offline, but I wouldn't do that here.
Okay, sure.
We know something's going to come up in IPv6. Huh?
Well, sure, everything is going to come up, right? But in theory, an epic it's something that should finish at some point, right? It's something with a god that should be closed. It's not something. It's not a filter. That's the difference between the filter and the epic. An epic is like a big story.
Yeah, whatever.
I think something's.
So, Patrick, you said
yes, I'm going to do this. I think they already set the estimate today, but it's in there. Okay, the major work in this sprint is continue at the implement the functionalities and pick up the UT. So far based on my information, is 13 ticket is the plan. The number one is 3292.
Wait, what?
The 3292, I think that they're upside down. Okay, 3292 is the bottom one. The prepare the extension required the OVS pass is the last one.
Patrick?
Yep.
Can I make a suggestion? So all of these stories, first of all these stories, and they should all be sized. You can see that a lot of these things, like this thing, is currently, if you were to take what it is,
okay, I think I already sent the email, asked the development team is in India. I already sent them to update this estimate the field again, even last evening. But in the morning, I haven't seen the update yet. So if it's the things blocked to moving forward, I was just stop for present this ones, ask them to fill the estimate field. What's your opinions, Thomas? Yeah, if there's no field, it's a stop.
Well, I'm just going to convert these all to user stories.
Yeah, 39.
And this should hopefully simplify it, and they just need to size them. But all of these should have story points.
Yes. Okay.
So just as a reminder, even if all of these are 1, it's going to be 13 points. How many people do you have working on this?
I think the 3 to 4. So the up to So the in a sprint, the one person working on the 3 to 4 is the reasonable ones. Some of them are the UT. I think that was should not take much time. So the 13 is a reasonable numbers to me.
Okay. So as long as you can make sure that they're sized. Remember, to size them after we start the sprint, it'll require that we move them out of the sprint, size them in here, right, using this field, nowhere else right now, and then move them back into the sprint.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
So going down the line here, IP optical. Mark, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. So we have, I can't remember how many points in total, but we actually, the team got a little bit bigger. So we have myself and Ayaka and NEC guys, Naoki and Yuta joining the fun. So I'm thinking I'm undershooting, but we'll see what happens. First one is essentially ensuring building the metro topology based on a big switch abstraction for the cord infrastructure. Second one, so ONOS 3298 is, it's almost done actually. It's building a standard or default development environment. Then the third one is ODU support, OTN support, which is ongoing. Fourth one is we haven't done a really good job yet of planning ahead of what we need for the user interface. So to ensure Simon knows what to do the next couple of weeks. We don't know yet either. So, and then the 3227 is really a task I put there. It's not really. I don't really need to do a lot. It's more about tracking the things that are going on with show to ensure whatever he's developing that it matches the the expectations for the packet optical one. And then the final one is really it's the lowest priority. It depends a lot on input I get from vendors. So if I don't make that one, that should be okay. But I still want to keep it on there as an ongoing task.
Sounds great. That looks pretty defined. Okay, thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
For Netcom, we don't really have anything. Yeah, I think there will be more Netcom-related work, both as part of Cord and as part of Subcom coming up. But we need to figure out what exactly that work is, because we've discovered some technical debt, shall we say, in Netcom providers.
So is Andrea going to put the story in here for them?
Yeah, I mean, Andrea and I were discussing this morning about putting some stories in there. We're still trying to identify the concrete stories, but we're going to do that.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't want to make an assumption that this should be priority over some other Cord-related things, but if this work aligns with what Cord needs to do, then absolutely yes. Okay. So Ali, you and I and Andrea can talk later then. Sounds good?
Sure.
And probably Brian can add to it too, because he's witnessed some of the technical debt himself as well.
Sure.
All right. Segment routing. Nothing there, I take it. Nothing on the direct TV. Okay, SD and IP. Anything?
Hi. The first priority story is the ONOS automated test with the OpenFlow space firewall and one ONOS and a single instance ONOS. The second story was left from last sprint and just need a few hours to finish. The third story is sometimes when setup run multiple ONOS nodes, SDMP can't set up P2P point-to-point intents. And the fourth one is a bug. Just this.
Okay. That seems like a reasonable workload. Are you going to have anybody else helping you with this, or just you?
Yeah, for mainly myself, for the first one, the flow space firewall, I need to work together with Luca.
Okay.
Yeah. I will help with that.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. So then on the deployments, I'll take it. You will speak, Luca?
Sure. The first story is very related to what Pipin was saying a second ago. So, but this is the manual test, just to test Drake with the flow space firewall. Everything is already set up, so it shouldn't be too difficult. AMLite, once we test Drake, we need to move from Cardinal to Drake. And in the meantime, I need to prepare a new production slice for ONOS and SDNIP. ARNet as well, these guys do perfectly everything on their own, but it's more facilitating the process of migrating from Cardinal to Drake than really do it. Then we are creating links between AMLite and ARNet. and Giant in Europe on the other side. And that's it. There's some stuff that will go on the infrastructure, but I didn't put yet the stories there because I don't know what will go on. I still need to talk more with the guys of Linux Foundation before being able to write down the correct stories. But in terms of story point, I believe more or less that's it, plus something else that will come in. And Cryonet also, I left it in the backlog, but we will start on November 16. That's a big story, and probably I should split it in some more stories. But yeah, I don't know how much will be done in this sprint, so I left it in the backlog for now, and then we will see while the sprint moves forward.
Sounds good. Thank you, Luca.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you were to skip down to the next bucket here, there would be BGPLS. Is this something you can represent, Patrick?
Yes, here. GPRS. Yeah, this one's much better except the first one.
Fix it right now.
Yeah.
Great, and I'll let Satish size it himself.
Yes. All these are 1, 2, 3, 4.
Couple of things here. Just a couple of observations. These three stories, as a matter of fact, are sort of non-compliant. These estimates should fall into Fibonacci series.
I think now they were slowly to pick up the UTs. The O here is try to cover the previous the sprint. I think it's somewhere in the previous sprint.
So
let me find out. Okay.
So a couple of observations. I don't know if you heard me right. These 3 points right here, these 3 stories, are sized using weird numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are not Fibonacci numbers. Second of all, even if you leave things as they are, it's 30 points, pretty much by work done by only one person. I presume Satish is the only one working on it. Is that correct?
No, it's not only one. So the several people's
okay.
He is the leader in that area.
Okay. So if possible, if Satish can revisit these 4 stories and size them appropriately, that would be good.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Otherwise it looks good. All right. Then moving on to OPNFV.
OPNFV, Chunchen. The Honda, do you know about this one?
Maybe I can get
Can you speak loud?
Yeah. For this sprint,
I think they already list within the list on the Thomas for this. You just go over the each one and see. Yeah.
For this sprint, we will focus on the layer 3, the south to north direction.
For the list here.
I cannot do that. Sorry, I cannot see.
Can you see it bigger?
Just take the mic up there.
See, it's I think all these are list. All these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only 6.
Yeah. The first one, 2831, we need to factor some error 2 code in the sprint 1. We did it. Just fix some bug and fix some grammar problem. And for the 3177, we will work. This is our major work on the layer 3. This part includes the south to north direction communication. So this part is mainly for the VM to access the internet. So it's south to north direction. and also get information from get the response from the internet. And also we need to 71. We also need to set up the demo environment for the spring, also for the NFA conference next week. And 3277 we will integrate everything and also include the testing code and everything, make a whole deliverable.
Couple here.
Oh.
Go ahead, Mark. Say something.
Okay. And 3270, we are building some testing code in the south to north. And in the last sprint, actually, Thomas already pointed out that we lack some UT test. So in this part, for the sprint 3, we will submit the UT test together with the other source code. And the 3200, this one is for, we would just try to clean up the code, unify the code formation, and fix some problem for L2 and L3 both. Both of them. Yeah. So this is the major work for the sprint 3.
Okay. Couple of things. Again, story points here are winners. Story points are missing, and in general, observation. All of the titles for these things are at least not intuitively clear as to what they involve. Like, for example, this especially, like ONOS deliverables.
Yeah.
Encourage writing a little more descriptive titles. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, we will modify it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So next is, presume there is test-related tasks.
So the first, I believe, 5 stories are continued from last sprint, so they're almost done. They'll probably be done early this week. Then 3155 is mostly just supporting Huawei and some of the test failures in their tests. And so that's probably only a couple hours a week.
So do you have a story point estimate on that?
1 or 2.
So what we say.
Okay.
This one is to use the packet generator for our func-intent test. The next one is a new test for the network configuration subsystem. And then the next 2 are smaller tasks to add assign controllers using the OVSDB plugin, and then use TLS or SSL for our controller to switch connections.
Okay, great.
And then the last one is the criterion story that they're still working on for IPv6 testing.
All right, sounds good. So do you guys feel comfortable that 40 points is doable?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Okay, and presume there's nothing here up.
No, it's not ready yet.
Okay.
Yeah. I need to talk to the Peter about the excellence. So
okay.
We're going to add more.
So Luca, I have an item here for you, I presume.
Yeah. It's something really minor. It's something for the statistics website, but nothing special. It takes me 10 minutes to do it. I gave 1 because I cannot give less.
Okay, no problem. Okay, nothing on documentation, at least not directly for now. Nothing for Bree. Yes, as part of the community/developer tools. Brian, you want to speak to this one?
Yeah, so in order to sort of start to give out more permissions for reviewers to +2 and submit code in certain areas of the code base, we'll need a small Gerrit plugin that basically knows the subdirectories for which people have +2 access. And so Gerrit has some APIs, but we need to basically build a small plugin in order to exercise them. We built the plugin in the past, so it's not going to be terribly difficult, but basically just put something in place so that we could sort of do a dry run or small test of starting to give out more +2 permissions.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Here I'm just taking the opportunity to convert some of these back to user stories here.
Yeah, so Thomas, I wouldn't do that because, you know, if you actually care about what's a story versus what's a feature versus what's a task, I've sort of tried to put them that way. So I've noticed that most of the stuff on the sprint so far is all usually subtasks or very small features, and there haven't really been any stories on the Scrum board. So I tried. So maybe I'm confused on what to do here, but when I put these in, I tried to make it clear what was a story, what was a user story, or a sort of larger project, and what were sort of smaller components there.
So I guess this is the general discussion about how we're using our backlog. Right now, for our backlog, we're primarily using it to keep track of bugs and user stories. That's it. And anything, basically, even a feature, new feature, enhancement, whatever, it can all be boiled down to a user story. So basically, and the reason we do this is to be able to allow tracking the story points. So unless we want to broaden our definition of basically the new features and tasks, and the problem is,
Well, yeah, probably it's a longer discussion.
But for right now, the idea is backlog contains user stories and bugs. And we can probably take this offline and have a more broader discussion whether we need to revise that.
Yeah, I think you'll want to rethink it because none of the stuff in the backlog, none of the stuff I've seen in the backlog is actually a user story. It's all random tasks. So I have a couple random tasks, I guess.
Okay.
By the way, Thomas, if it can help, I can for now disable. I can, when you try to create something in Jira, I can show just stories and bugs.
Yeah, well, let's wait and let's have that broader discussion. I'm certainly open, but I just wanted to make sure we preserve some of the mechanisms for better tracking the work. That's all, and that there's plenty of room for improvement, and I'm certainly willing to listen on how to better use the existing tools. But I don't think this is the meeting for that. So let's perhaps. I think we can probably make that a part of the discussion of how to better work with our tools and with the community in general. So we would probably bring in David Boswell into that discussion as well. And figure out how we want to use it. In general, there's a lack of we're missing somebody to act as a product owner and also help us to groom the backlog, and we need to. Somebody's going to have to start wearing the hat, and be the neck to choke for that. So we'll have to figure out how to overcome that, and we can make this as part of the discussion as well. Is that right, Bob? In the meantime, I apologize for modifying your entries.
Sorry there. I didn't realize my mic was off, or was on rather. But yeah, so the things that I would work on are 32, 76, and 77, which are prototyping the control network topology design and investigate running ONOS in a mini-node server node.
So these two items. So
yeah. The others are more overarching things.
Okay.
So but I just put them in because they're, I mean, I don't think they're really epics. They're actually larger features or user stories. But, yeah.
So roughly speaking, would you be able to assign a size to both of these?
I'm not entirely sure what the size means, but I think they're both 5s, which I think is 1 week, and my 3rd week I'll be at a conference.
All right, sounds good. Roughly speaking, that's about right. In terms of your story points versus time. Now I don't necessarily like to get too stuck on that because that can cause people to overthink it. But rough, wet thumb in the air type estimate, that sounds good. All right. Okay. On a community, is David there?
Yeah, I am. And this is my first time, so I might not have done it right. I guess those are all backlog and not up in the script.
No, this is perfect. I mean, we can easily see what's in the backlog. The backlog is ordered, so we can now. Generally, the idea would be that we could start dragging off the top of the backlog into the sprint.
Great. Well, so stepping back a minute, I put a draft community plan together last week and sent it around for review. And if anybody has any feedback, I'd love to hear. And I've made stories out of a few of the priorities from that plan. So the first is I'm working with Ayaka to make the documentation contribution information easier to find as an example of what we can do to optimize a contribution pathway. So that could be a model for going forward with other types of contribution opportunities. So we should be able to do something there to optimize it this sprint.
So I'm going to move this one up. Yep.
Great, please. Yes. For the next one, Brian alluded to it earlier when talking about the plugin, but we want to put together a proposal for how to increase the number of code reviewers, and so we will have that out for review within the sprint to get feedback from people. So you can move that one up as well. And then lastly, and this is something that I welcome input and contribution from everybody, I want to get the content of the blog more active. And so if anybody here is interested in taking part in that, I want to put a content calendar in place. So I think speaking more to people in the community about what's happening in the community and how they can get involved is critical. If there isn't visibility into what people can do, people aren't going to do stuff. So I think this is a great way to help people get that visibility. So again, this might look like sharing information about what you're doing and having some pointers to how people can help. And so I'll be reaching out to people about if they're interested in taking part in that. So something else to take a look at during the sprint.
Yeah, I think that'll be good. Because once we have the blogs in place, then we can tweet a link to them and things like that. What we've been missing. That's awesome. All right. So I think we sort of went down the list and exhausted everything. There's something without an epic here. Looks like a bug assigned to me. All right, we'll figure out. This is probably. Yeah, I'll take a look at it. What epic this really should belong to. Seems like southbound. Okay, so if you were to take a look at all the issues in a sprint and now take a look at the big, okay, 207 points. That's about on track what we've been doing before at the start of sprint. So I guess, so it definitely seems to overshoot, again, by about 40% of the capacity that we're supposed to have.
So I'd say offline, let's talk about the Scrum teams and who's responsible for different areas, because as you go through each epic, it seems like there's, when you look at the team sizes, it seems like it should be fine.
Yeah, so let's leave it like this. Let's just be cognizant of adding work to the sprint a bit. I mean, other than the points that will come from the stories which are currently unsized, and because the people are in different time zone, we'll let them do that after the fact. But other than that, if we are cognizant about adding more work to the sprint, let's try this and see how we do. Also, I would highly encourage everybody to make sure to try to tackle these in the order of priority, which is, the critical ones first, and the next ones, then the next ones, because the priority is there to convey the sense of urgency. And also keep updating the stories as you do the work, because that really helps us get. There's a positive feedback in there if you see the story, if you see the burn down chart. What I would like to do is start doing also in the future is to start having a big visible chart, either both in a lab physically or potentially a virtual one, to be able to see the burn down chart, and hopefully that burn down chart will be tracking the projected burn down rate. Because if you were to look at the past sprint burn down, they're for the most part flat, followed by a cliff dive at the end of the sprint, and that's not very useful to be able to use as a measure of how we're making our headway along through the sprint. So I would like to start using the tools more effectively, and so I encourage everybody to update the system as the work gets done. So I'll try to record this data so that we can keep the starting position of the sprint, so that we know what we signed up for, and so we can track it at the end of the sprint. Is there anything else that I've forgotten, or anything that somebody has to add? Oh, okay. So I guess with that we can call the sprint planning done. Let's have a good one, and I'll start the sprint shortly. Why don't we start it now? All right. Have a good day, everybody. Talk to you later.
Great, thanks.
Bye-bye.
See you.